Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Nvidia market. Lots to discuss today, post Nvidia earnings yesterday. Loaded up for discussion. We've got Bitcoin losing 89K before a bit of a bounce back to 91. Go through some key data points there. We've got Nvidia earnings up 6%, rising back to $198 in pre-markets. I think it's a touch course of the show today, as well as a general discussion on the rest of what is going on in the, what is fair to say is a fairly confusing market at the moment. We've got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs in general as well as a general discussion. So stay tuned for that. I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We are ready. Before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice because, as you can tell, the market is very, very unpredictable at the moment and we do not know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment at all times. Legendary, with that out of the way, it is Thursday. It's the 20th of November. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM doing excellent. We are getting closer to something that I'm excited for, which is seeing my final Mega ETH allocation and seeing probably that number, a number going up, at least one number that is going up. And then obviously, what is it? Start of December. So like probably 2 weeks, roughly 2.5 weeks maybe, until we can officially do stuff on Mega ETH. So button clicking can resume. That is something to be excited for.
For a second, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks or so until Christmas holiday. Because once again, well, not once again, it's for the first time ever last year, we took a 2-week break at Christmas. And we're going to do the same thing again. Why the hell not? We turn up every other day of the year. So we're going to take a 2-week break, just so you guys all know. Put it in your calendars. Modern Market will be off. The 2 weeks around.
Get back to it earlier because 2 weeks does feel like a long time. I very vividly remember those conversations.
Yeah, it was funny because last year was the first time that we had ever taken a break, both of us at the same time, right? Like, I think you've been away a couple of times now during the course of the, I don't know, 3 or so years that we've done this. But then, so yeah, last Christmas was the first time we did it. I'm pretty sure though, although we said that stuff at the beginning and there was definitely probably some withdrawal symptoms initially, I'm pretty sure we just didn't even, I mean, I was obviously thinking about the show in some ways, but we didn't even get close to running another one, right? We like genuinely took the time off, which I think is super important when you do something like what we do, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember though, to be honest. Maybe I'm just making that up because it's like in hindsight or something. What do you think?
There was one occasion where we discussed if we want to run a show and they were like, nah, it's not big enough. Whatever happened, I don't remember what it was to do it. And we were like both like very happy with actually taking this break and having 2 weeks off.
Yeah, it's definitely what I would lean towards in circumstances where you basically never take any time off anyway. So that's definitely my default position. I never like the idea of taking loads of holidays when you're always in the habit of taking them, because I think that leads you into justifying why you need more holidays and why you need a rest and why you need a break all the time. And I get it. Sometimes you do. But this one, I don't know. We're gonna respect the Christmas holidays a lot. So that's what we're gonna do. Kind of looking forward to it as well. Although I don't know, I get a sneaky sense this time there could be some more action potentially.
Yeah. Do you think Christmas rally, Christmas related airdrops? I feel like every year, well, not every year,
There's
but we
always
have
something, right?
something coming around Christmas. We had, what year was it when we got that like that gas
Oh, that was
the
so long ago, man. That was so long
gas
ago.
based airdrop? What is 2022 or 2021? I
This
think
was
2020.
2021, man.
4 years. Oh my.
X2Y2, the OpenSea competitor, dropped a ton of money on Christmas.
Yeah. Do you think we're gonna see a Christmas rally and a Christmas airdrop? None of these two, or both, or one of these two?
Um, I mean, I think it's kind of funny that we talk about this space being really entitled. It's like, should we be getting a like? Yeah, it feels like we worked hard this year. We should get someone should give us a Christmas airdrop. Like we've all worked hard. No, I actually don't think we'll see anything. Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here, very instinctive. I don't think we'll see anything. I think anyone who's going to give you money, it will be via ICOs now. People have realized that they can not get away with it because it's a legitimate way of raising money, but just the common airdrop of the past has been dilute. Not It's not literally diluted, but it's so far away from what the spirit of the original airdrop was now, that now people realize that, oh, you can actually just get money from the community and then give them a stake in it rather than do an airdrop. So I think the dynamic has kind of shifted there. So I don't think we're going to see that. On the broader question of a Christmas rally, Santa rally into Christmas, I don't know, man. I really, really don't know. The reason why I took off my shorts the other day was because I thought, we went lower yesterday in the end, so it would have been more helpful to keep them on. But I think we could go higher from here. Like, we have really gone down in an aggressive way. I think we could bounce. I have no idea how big that bounce could be. I don't think that would justify calling it a Christmas rally. Like a bounce from 91 on Bitcoin to 98 to me is not a Santa rally. Like, you'd have to, go back to 110, 120 to make it meaningful to me. And personally, I don't see that happening, not in this compressed time frame. Unless I just want to caveat that because look, I think there's so many factors here. So we're coming out making these statements, but there's a lot of factors. Unless we find out where all of this incredible heavy selling is coming from, like, is it something to do with the October the 10th liquidations? Is there someone who's been forced selling all this stuff? I know OG Bitcoin whales have been selling a lot. That was kind of more documented before, above 100K. I'm not convinced it's that same group of people now. So if I could get some like conclusive evidence to know, because remember in 2021 it was like, okay, well, 3AC is blown up, FTX is blown up, and then you can kind of get a sense like, okay, well, now the selling's going to stop because these entities have decided to stop. Whereas here, I get no real, can't get a read on, when is the selling going to stop? I don't know. And I'm not a big chartist. I just like looking at a technical chart saying, oh, we definitely going to bounce off 91 or something. So that's my kind of complicated answer. I don't think there's a straightforward answer to that, Ledge, but curious for your thoughts before we get into the main stuff today.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a massive end of the year rally. I think there's been too much volatility for that. Unless we see a rate cut, and the rate cut discussion and the current Fed minutes is something we're going to get into later in the show. I think airdrop wise or TGE wise, we are gonna see some things before the year ends, and some of the investments that I personally did should TGE still this year. So it's maybe not a Christmas airdrop, but some of the money that I have thrown
Around.
into various early stage ventures should come back to me at least partially. So that is something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice, right? It would be nice to see some of that capital returned in some way. But I don't know. Do people look at this market and want to delay further, hoping for a bigger bounce? I
Mm.
don't know 100%. So let's uh let's keep an eye out. But I apologize to the audience in some respect because, like, look, I just don't think there's an easy answer to these questions um, at the moment, and I think that's reflected in a lot of people's trading. It's reflected in a lot of people's outlooks. The very split nature of people's perspectives for the next few months. I mean, you mentioned the rate cuts, Ledge, and maybe we'll talk about that more later. Have you also seen, just because I guess we'll double click on this in a bit, have you seen how the Trump administration has been like a lot of the data now after the shutdown, they're just not doing it anymore. Have you seen that?
Yes. And I feel like this is happening on the one hand, and on the other hand, Trump's communication against J-Pow is turning even more aggressive than usual, almost like if they're overcompensating for some of the data which is not being communicated or shared.
Yeah, I saw a funny tweet the other day. It's like Trump keeps telling uh, the Fed to cut the rates, right? But then it keeps doing ridiculous things that means that they can't cut the rates because you're not even giving them the information. You can't just stop the flow of data, which is what they need in order to to determine the health of the economy. So like it kind of doesn't make any sense. It actually I mean, I saw another take the other day which I'm kind of persuaded by, which is something like the I think in some ways we just need to make room. This was the take. The take is that you need to make room in the markets for the next set of rate cuts. Like, I don't think necessarily is, and this is my point about the time frame being long, and just the constant reminder that Trump's been in for 4 years. He hasn't been in for 4 years. He's been in for less than a year. He was elected 1 year ago, been inaugurated less than a year ago in January. And the 4 year term is a long term. Like it can't just go up in a straight line for a year, especially when you have these seeds of like Mamdani getting elected in New York, this more kind of socialist leaning tendencies and um, persuasions kind of becoming slightly more popular. It can't just go up in a straight line with asset holders getting rich whilst everyone else is really, really struggling. So I feel like, okay, you've had the Trump pump out of the gate, and just need to like, I think it needs to cool off. And so, again, this is why I always talk about overlaying the 4 year. And people talk about the 4 year cycle, but I'm talking about the 4 year political um, election cycle and how the market has become a political utility in some ways. And you know, maybe we just need to cool off a little bit, give give the market some space to go up later when the rate cuts come more aggressively, so that it can kind of line up with the rest of the political agenda later in the year. And I think, I don't know, whilst it is not something that is ideal, I think I'm increasingly just thinking that it's all, I mean, even this data stuff, man, like what are they doing? It's just, can you trust any of it anyway? Now they're just like throwing it all in the bin, just saying we're not even going to give it to you. We'll do it another time. Like, I don't know. It feels very, very manufactured and forced, and I think difficult to trust in any event. So, those are some random thoughts to start, Ledge. Final thoughts there before we get into, I guess, a bigger discussion on maybe a number of these topics as it relates to Bitcoin and Nvidia specifically.
Nothing to add at that point. Let's talk more on that when we get into the actual headlines.
Okay, let's do it then. So, uh, just a reminder, guys. So we're going to get into all the main stuff as usual. We just wanted to give a shout out to our partners for today's show. This show is sponsored by BZ, the on-chain claw machine, innovating how collectors chase their next grail. BZ lets you pull everything from PSA graded Charizards to Labubu figures, Travis Scott Jordans, and sealed products, all securely vaulted with Brinks, tokenized on chain, and shipped worldwide. Whether you're after rare Pokemon slabs or battling your way up the leaderboard to farm an airdrop through pulls, swaps, and trades, BZ makes collecting on-chain fun. We'll also give away $500 once again today to pull rare Pokemon slabs towards the end of this show. Remember, we have our own Modern Market leaderboard now where you can track your BZ activity. And we're going to be doing one of these giveaways each week. I think we've got at least another 2 to do in the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to do those. And we've got one coming up at the end of today's show. So I hope you were active over there. Right. So we're going to check in with BZ again at the end of the show when we do that giveaway. But let's get to the roundup today to get you up to speed with everything that you need to know. Starting with the price action as usual, we've got Bitcoin pretty much flat now at 91.7K. Although, as I said, we lost 89K for a brief moment last night. ETH is down a couple of percent to $3,000. XRP is flat at $2.11. BNB is down a couple of percent to just under 900. Solana's up 2% to 141. What else we got? We got Hyperliquid up 3%, back to $39. Hyperliquid's pretty damn strong in the face of the rest of the broader market sell-off, right? And of course, got to shout out Zcash, up 7%, back to 674, up 36% on the week. I actually got a couple of Zcashes. I don't know if that's how you. I don't know what the plural of Zcash is, but I got a couple of Zcashes the other day just to get in the game. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge flat at 15 cents. Pepe's up 1%. Pump is up 3%. Trump is down 3%. Pengu is up 3%. SPX is up 4%. WIF is flat. Fartcoin's up 17. Gosh, I don't know what's going on there. Fartcoin's up 17%, back to 300 mil FTV. So a lot of disparity on the meme coin side of things. Mog's up 3. Things are really kind of across the board, like very random. Rect is down 6 again, still down 50% on the week after those forced liquidations the other day. So very, very random set of price action, I think that's fair to say. Getting into the headlines themselves and the rest of the roundup to get you up to speed with the rest of the news. Got Bitcoin losing 89K before bounce back to 91K. We'll touch on those key data points and thoughts in the first headline. We've got Nvidia beating earnings with revenue up 60% and shares up 6% to almost $200 before the slight pullback in pre-markets. So definitely need to touch on Nvidia. All eyes went in that direction yesterday. So we will discuss there. And then finally, December no rate cut chances surge up to 68% on Poly market. So all of these things are very, very much connected. I appreciate they are distinct headlines. So maybe the conversation there will be fairly holistic, assessing all of these things put together. In notable price action, we've got Tensor up 210% to 122 mil FTV. I don't know specifically why. That's a humongous move up. Zcash, as I said, up 12%. Stark up 9% as well. A lot of these on the ZK narrative. Grass is up 65%. Nillion is down 43%. Some notable sales. CryptoPunk floor has now dropped to 29 ETH. That is 90,000 US dollars. So the NFTs are down. CryptoPunk's leading that decline, I guess. Web3 roundup. Some other things you need to know. CEA Industries, the BNB treasury company, added over 15,000 BNB tokens on this dip. We have World Liberty Fi tweeting that attackers gained access to some user wallets through third-party security lapses, which is why in September they froze certain wallets. If you read that explanation in full, I really cannot tell you what is going on. It seemed very, very unclear about what was going on as it relates to those frozen funds. Aztec launches Ignition Chain L2 with a focus on privacy. I got a feeling we're going to see a lot more people raise money to things to do with privacy, chase that narrative now as that becomes pretty hot. Bitwise Spot XRP ETF launches today. $1 billion ETH DAT proposed by leading Asian investors returns investor capital, shelving their plans to launch. So it looks like some of these DATs are getting put back on the shelf, deciding it's not necessarily a good idea in these market conditions. Mega ETH final allocations for public sale will be announced tomorrow, as Legendary mentioned. South Korean internet giant Naver intends to confirm plan to acquire Upbit's parent company. That's the main cryptocurrency exchange in South Korea. India plans to launch ARK, a stable digital asset pegged one-to-one to the rupee. I think we're going to see more of that over the months and years to come. And finally, Base co-founder Jesse Pollack announces his personal token Jesse will launch on Base app. Base continuing to double down on the creator coin thesis, whether it's creator coin or content coin thesis. And so we'll see how that plays out. Legendary. That is the roundup to get everyone up to speed with what's going on. We're going to talk about the headlines in more detail in a moment. Let's have a quick discussion here, though. First, what's catching your attention? What are you finding interesting? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, quite a few things that I find interesting. Maybe starting with CryptoPunks. I think we said on one of the shows, once they got under 100K, time to be patient if you want a punk, because they have a good chance of sliding lower. Beanie had a post on that as well. It's very, very convinced that it is down only for punks for a while. And that I think he sees them like going even under 20 ETH or so, like going more towards the 50, 60K range. I don't know if they're going to go that low, but I'm definitely thinking we will see lower lows for punks, and at one point I might be intrigued to pick up one or two or maybe three, depending on how low we go.
I think I've seen some arguments about punks, and I think I, I think they're very dependent on ETH price. So I mean, in some ways, sure, they're priced in dollars. So when you say, oh, 50K would be a good price, sliding under 100K. So in some ways they're priced in dollars, but the when they really start ripping higher, it's always because it's a time when ETH is ripping higher too, and conversely, they start tanking when ETH price tanks. So sure, I think if ETH goes to 2K again, which should not be ruled out by anyone, by the way, and you should have some kind of framework in your mind for the probability, like what the probabilistic chances are of ETH trading at 2.5 again, given that we're only $500 higher than that now. And yesterday we lost 2.9, so we were at 2.8 yesterday for a short amount of time. Yeah, I think we could see 30 ETH, you know, or 25 ETH, 2K. So 25 ETH CryptoPunks when ETH is at 2.5 or something. I think they'll continue to slide. So I guess it's just up to you to decide whether you think that's a good buy or not. I do think one of the best arguments against the higher CryptoPunks floor, I think, is the idea that, look, some of them are just not as collectible as others, obviously. And there are actually a lot of floor CryptoPunks, which for whatever reason, people don't find to be as collectible or don't want to rock them as much as others. And I think people have tried to, but really there's only some that feel like they legitimately have a collector premium. And by that, what do I mean? This is not like a subjective thing where I look at it and be like, oh, I think this is cool. No, it's like go to the loan market and go and see which traits have people willing to lend at significantly higher premiums than they would for the floor. That's where the truth is revealed in the loan market in an asset. If you're holding a $20,000 asset, this is forget CryptoPunks. If you're holding a $20,000 asset and no one is willing to lend you any money against it, there's a very, very good chance you're not really holding a $20,000 asset. Like, you should always be looking at the health of the loan market to determine the true nature of your asset. It's one of the strongest learnings I feel like I've made over the last few years in the space. Ledge, your thoughts there? What price would you be looking to enter?
Yeah, very much agree with that. I would say the punks that I am looking at right now, where I'm interested, they trade at 120-ish K, so like 20% above floor. So if floor goes towards the 60K, which would be like the 62.5K, which would be 25 ETH at 2.5 K ETH, then this is probably a price point where I'm like willing to, get something above the floor and maybe pick up on floor on top of that. But I would instantly want to borrow against that on Gondi and put the capital to work. I just don't want to have an unproductive JPEG sitting in my wallet doing nothing, to be honest with you.
How are you going to outperform that though in a down market though? This is the question I had for you the other day. Like, how would you plan to outperform the 8% you're going to owe? Checked recently, but loans on CryptoPunks were as high as like 10-15%. Like, can you outperform that?
If it's in the 8 to 10% range, I think I can outperform that. Pretty certainly outperform that.
Fair enough. We've spoken about this before. I would have a different perspective. I would lend against the punk that I own without needing to own it, and make money on that. See it as a loan to buy situation. If they default, great. I get a punk that I want at a fantastic price. And if they don't, then I make money. And obviously doing those loans now would be a great time as the price is declining, because your loan to value will be much lower. You have to know when you're at the bottom though, because you're still kind of, when the price is declining significantly, the chances of liquidations are much higher, because people will people will decide that they don't need to pay back their loan. So ideally you want to do this towards the bottom. I suspect because of the sharp decline in NFT prices over the last month, there'll be a lot of liquidations of borrowers who cannot be bothered to pay back their loans. We saw an example of that just the other day with Cyrus, actually because he priced it well, making a ton of money as part of the liquidation because he managed to sell that one of the best Bored Apes for much more than what he had. Much more than what he had loaned. Just as a final thought on this, because we're talking about this part of the market, for a long, and this is like a personal anecdote, in this type of market is one where I would much prefer to be lending again. And I was lending against CryptoPunks on Gondi for a long period of time. As the market heated up, I stopped doing that because I didn't feel like the APY was significant enough to compete with the other risk that you could take in the market. So I stopped. Now, when you get into this kind of market, I think that 8 to 10% on a premium CryptoPunk, you start to feel like that's a really excellent deal again. So actually, I'm glad we had this conversation because that's a good reminder to revisit that and go back in for that type of exposure, which in a more down market, you know, that 8 to 10%, I think looks incredibly attractive. And to be honest, I think it's going to be higher, man. I haven't checked recently, but I think it could be as high as 10 to 12 against premium stuff. So shout out to Gondi, by the way. I was an investor in there like, God, it must have been more than a year ago now, but they've been really cornering that premium side of the NFT market. So good work to them. Any other thoughts, Ledge, before we get into the other side of things? Any personal reflections? We haven't had a portfolio discussion in a while. I know you've been banning yourself from pressing any buttons. Is that still true? How are you holding up?
It is still true. It is a very weird situation because I think yesterday I did not sign any transaction, and that's probably the first time in a few years where I didn't do like not a single transaction. And I think last year, just to put things in perspective, I did like 25,000 ish transactions. So that is, what is that? 70 ish a day to get to that
On
number. So
average, yeah.
yeah. So it felt pretty weird to not do any button clicking yesterday, but I'm holding up pretty well. I'm basically completely in stables at this point in time, with the exception of um, some JPEGs and some long BTC positions, but all the other thing and the long-term gold positions, but all the other short-term holdings I flushed out, and I only have, what do I have left at the moment? Maybe like 10, not including JPEGs, 10, 15 ETH that I have liquid. Like the rest has been sold all the way throughout the year, plus some of the stuff which is sitting in Ethos, just probably like another 6, 7 ETH, whatever. I probably don't even have 100K in ETH at the moment, to be honest. Like I'm very much stabled up and chilling on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think that's probably wise, to be honest. I think, what do I think? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's good that you flushed it out. I don't know when you did that. There's the most helpful thing that I think, and this is a learning for, I guess, people as you kind of reflect back, is the always be selling mantra, where the idea was like, look, you can't time the top, just keep selling stuff in general. And in the end, I saw this really good tweet actually by one of the best traders on CT. Maybe share it for a second to give people some perspective, because I feel like this is like a great warning for what not to do if this cycle has not gone to plan in any way. And to be fair, I think this is one of these things where no matter how much you've made, you would be able to read yourself into this situation, um, which is a pretty dangerous situation because you could have done pretty well, and you can still think you've not done well enough because there's some number that you're attaching yourself to when you first looked at your portfolio at like some really high point of the cycle. Um, I'm just trying to find the tweet, because I think this is a good one for people to just take a bit of a warning from. If I can't find it, I'm just going to have to paraphrase it in some way.
Do you know by
Okay,
whom
here
it
we go.
was?
I've got it. I'm going to share it to you here, and then maybe you can pull it up. I'm going to share it to you in this
Mhm.
in this chat. So basically, I'm going to start reading it. You'll pull it up in a second. This is from Rhino, who is a trader, very good trader, I think. Always seems very comfortable being counter what everyone else is saying or doing. So worth having a think about. They shared this the other day. Make it back immediately. Derangement syndrome is going to get so many people fucked. It basically goes up only for years. If you think about it, that's literally what's happened, right? Bitcoin went from 16 to 125 or something like that. Basically goes up only for years because mostly bull market for the skilled. You give some back at the end, especially post, October the 10th for many, but you don't see how much you're up since the cycle began. You only tether to your peak net worth and then you continue to chase that. But the opportunities in the market do not justify pushing in the same way as you did at the start of the cycle. So you force more and more suboptimal trades chasing your absolute peak. And then you end up completely screwed and tilted, then explode. Common pathing for people wondering how we always watch people go from did giggle well for years into explosion. Far more common than people think, by the way. This is the thing that I'm always trying to guard against, and just always trying to be super happy and super grateful for the path that you take. As we've spoken about this a lot on the show, how the space really incentivizes and rewards high stakes gamblers, like the make it all in one go trade, the person that's going to risk it all on a particular thesis and then they make it, and then everyone wants to applaud that specific style, not knowing that that's the exact way that they're going to blow up 1 year later because they've done the exact same thing again. They've lost it all, or they've blown up 5 times and now this is the way they've done it the sixth time, and then they're going to blow up again anyway next time because they can't stop turbo gambling. And I think this is just a really interesting point about, look, there might have been a number that you looked at some point in time this cycle where you had more than you do now, but so long as the number that you're at now is much higher than where you started the cycle, or just higher, or you feel like you made progress in some way, then you can bank that and take that to the bank and think, okay, I've had a good cycle in some way. And you don't try and chase that higher number, because the conditions now, and this is the thing to stress, the conditions now are awful. The conditions right now are god awful to take any significant risk, as far as I can tell. Or at least they have been for a little bit. Maybe now you're getting to the point where the risk reward on crypto itself is looking a bit better once we've had this big humongous pullback. But you can tell that people have no idea which way things are going, and there's very little conviction out there. So maybe you can form your own specific thing, but chasing something high risk now at this stage just feels a terrible risk reward. Ledge, wanted to bring you in there for your thoughts on that take before we hit the main headlines today.
Yeah, beautiful post. It's relatively easy to make a mill in this market compared to walking away with with a mill in crypto or 100K, whatever number you want to put there as a placeholder. So I very much agree with this, and I think English put it very well in the YouTube comments yesterday, when he said that it takes forever for people to turn bullish. Like, remember at what stage in the market we've been? BTC did pass 69K, flipped its old all-time high. S&P 500 was at all-time highs, and people were legitimately having a discussion on the timeline whether we're in a bull market and a bear market. And this is exactly a reflection of that. It takes people way too much time to flip bullish and understand that BTC was the asset which was moving and driving. And when they then flip bullish and went like, oh, it is a bull market, actually, BTC has hit 120K, and now I have to make all the money. And this is then later in a cycle, you take on more and more and more risk. And the likelihood of you failing is getting higher and higher. And I feel like that risk management is something that this space is lacking a lot because we have glorified the hero trade so much. I've even seen it with Lito, who's working with Bungie, had posted that he talked to one of the auditors of Fluid, the DeFi protocol, and he said like this auditor is a super conservative guy, and he put 50% of his net worth into the Fluid token. I'm like, you are not a risk averse and conservative person if you put 50% of your net worth into whatever you think is such a good asset. Like, I get that Lito's point was to say, yes, this is the vote of confidence for Fluid by an auditor who audited, and that obviously makes sense. But it's not a sane thing to put 50% of your net worth into a single asset, no matter if that's in crypto, outside of crypto, ever. It is a gamble, and a gamble can work out. And if that gamble works out, that's also typically that thing that goes viral. And then you will have exactly this perception that all it takes is one trade. And adding to that, the other issue that I see with this is how we talk about fumbles. What do I mean by that? Crypto Leon, he was on Whale's show, and Crypto Leon is a good friend of mine, and I'm just stating him as an example here because he was the last person who worded it like that, who I have now in my mind, who said he fumbled 2 mil on Peanut, the meme token. And what does he mean by that? He means that he bought it at 5 mil, 1.2K worth of that. The next day it dumped to 1 point something mil. He sold it at a loss. And then one day later, Elon tweeted about that. And then it went to 60 mil. But it took quite a while for Peanut to go to like 1 bill or 1 point something bill, wherever it ended trading at after it got listed on Binance and Coinbase. And just the thing that we say this, oh, I fumbled 2 mil on that, is implying that you would have perfectly sold the top of that trade. You would be like, oh yeah, I buy that for 1.2K and I'm not selling at 100K, not at 200, not at 300, not at 400, not at half a mil, not at 1 mil. No, I'm holding that perfectly and just dump it all in a clip at 2 mil. And this creates an unrealistic set of expectations. Nobody's like, oh, if I had DCA'd out on the way up, and this is how I would have let it out, I probably would have missed out on 300K or 400 or 250, whatever, which would be a much more realistic way to look at things. But we like glorify the hero trade, and the way that we do math for fumbles is like we look at the absolute top, and we basically tell ourselves, oh yeah, I would have easily held that 2000x in my portfolio and then dumped it perfectly at the top. And I feel like that adds to this like inclination that we have to turbo gamble in this space, and to like even more think that all it needs is like that one perfect trade to execute with significant size, with either significant size in terms of like holding the multiples or putting 50% of your net worth into whatever, and that's all it takes for you to make it. And as a result of that, 90%, 98% of people will blow up with that strategy, but they never really hit the timeline with the same intensity as the few who make it and then serve as inspiration for others to do the same.
Yeah, I think, well said. I mean, yeah, from a personal perspective, I never bother doing the maths of